Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can everybody hear me okay? Sort of? Thank you, Shane. Thanks, Dan. My name is Edith Guadiana Craig, and I'm the library director here for the library. I want to thank you all for coming out this afternoon on a gorgeous, sunny summer day. I'm going to shout out to Holly Cable for the weather. Thank you so much for ordering that. Our mission here at the library is to support the growth and creativity of the individual and to foster the spirit of community and local economy. We do this by living our core values of being patron-centric in all that we do, practicing diligent stewardship, creating an innovative environment, and for reaching for excellence with our staff, services, and collections. If you consider this comprehensive planning process for this project, we've been waiting for this day for very long. However, the path to this renovation and expansion began with Diana Brown and the board of 2008, which include longtime trustees like Norman Huntley, who served on the board for the library for 49 years, Victoria Haynes, Karen DeVault, and Michael Hill, as an example. With direct focus and 100% commitment, the current board finished what began decades ago. This $18.6 million public project broke ground the week that COVID was declared a global pandemic. This board has supported me and the staff and given us the tools needed to do our jobs effectively and to present to you what you see today. Because of this, the project team and staff, this project is on budget and on time. And now, with gratitude and deference for his leadership and mentorship, I welcome Library Board President Robert Gephardt.
Today we're here to celebrate the renovation of this beautiful historic structure. In 1906, the people of St. Charles wrote to Andrew Carnegie asking for funds to build a public library. The Carnegie Library formula required that first, there was a demonstrated need for a public library. Since 1889, the local library was a private subscription library that had an annual membership fee of $2 per year and circulated about 200 books a week. The second element of the Carnegie Library formula was that a building site would be provided. For a building site, the people of St. Charles chose this location at the corner of 5th Avenue and Main Street. This location wasn't without controversy. Being on the outskirts of town, it was a long walk for all those people who lived on the other side of the river. Third, they would need to hire and pay staff to maintain the library. A fun fact, the first library director was Miss Mary Stewart. Fourth, public funds, not private donations, would be used to run the library, because otherwise, according to Mr. Carnegie, quote, an endowed institution is liable to become the prey of a clique, unquote. I'm sure glad we got rid of cliques back in 1906, aren't you? And the last element of the Carnegie Library formula was that the public library would need to provide free service to all. 115 years have passed since the people of St. Charles wrote that letter to Mr. Carnegie. But today, our dedication to the Carnegie Library formula hasn't wavered. After months of patron surveys and interviews, we put together a needs assessment for our building. Translating that assessment into a vision, our architects, Sheehan Nagel Hartray, redesigned our 100-year-old building for a 21st century. Our building contractor, Shales McNutt, gutted and rebuilt the library from top to bottom so it's ready to serve our patrons for the next 100 years. Today, we, the citizens of the St. Charles Public Library District, recommit to the continued literacy and education of our patrons by renewing the promises from 115 years ago. In 2019, over 258,000 patrons passed through the doors of our library and checked out over 1 million items, proving the need that libraries fill in the 21st century. Continuing to use the original Carnegie building that was gifted to the community in 1908, our renovated library is now over 65,000 square feet and contains over 300,000 items for patrons. We continue to invest in our library staff. Here in St. Charles, we have homegrown, talented librarians who are nationally recognized and requested for speaking engagements around the country. Today at our library, we look to the future while preserving the past, ready to serve the needs of all of our patrons. In closing, I would like to note that in a normal year, building projects are subject to delays and cost overruns. But I'm proud to say that even though we broke ground at the start of the pandemic, this project has been completed on time and under budget. This would not have been possible without the complete team effort of our amazing library staff, our talented architects, Gephardt Hartray, and our dedicated and committed building contractor, Shales McNutt. But there is one person who deserves special attention. 5 years ago, the board made an outstanding choice in hiring Edith Craig as our library director. It has been her leadership, her drive, and her optimism that's brought us to this day. Thank you, Edith. We are lucky to have you. And finally, I would like to thank the citizens of the St. Charles Public Library District for your continued support.
Thank you. I'd next like to introduce one of the people behind the design of this cohesive, remarkable project. He's been my call him like you see him guy on the project team, and he's the only other person I know who can match my elation over finding a solution to window glazing. Here is Eric Penny of Sheehan Nagel Hartray Architects.
Libraries hold a special place in our communities. They are vibrant hubs of exploration, creation, and connection, despite what some say. All right. We would like to thank the Board of Trustees for the opportunity to design the St. Charles Public Library and for their thoughtful leadership, input, and support throughout this project. It takes a big team to realize a project this size. I'd like to recognize ours. Don McKay, Amy Schmeeding, Magda Hebel, and Brianna Saviano, plus many consultants and the Shales McNutt Construction Company. We would especially like to thank Director Edith Craig and her team. I'd echo pretty much what Rob said, except I threw in determination. Nothing gets in Edith's way. She's going to make it through. The new edition of the St. Charles Public Library includes many features and technologies emblematic of a 21st century library. This includes maker spaces, teen rooms, sound rooms, 3D printers, and laser engravers. However, our design concept began with what we view as the heart of the library, the Carnegie Library. Through generations and multiple editions, the Carnegie Library had gotten a little lost in the building. Reintegrating that special space back into the daily life of the library was the launching point for our design. We also felt the existing two-story space was an unrealized opportunity, a grand space that was acting as a glorified corridor, full of desks, stairs, walkways. Our intent for this space was to return it to the patrons, to make it a living room for the library filled with natural light, seating, even a fireplace. Our goals for the exterior of the library seemed simple: to integrate the three existing buildings into a more unified whole, and to elevate the presence of the library along Main Street. Given the disparate nature of those three existing buildings, this was a little more difficult than we expected. The additions are very different expressions, more of their time than of their place. Our approach to the new addition was not to imitate the existing, but rather echo the underlying proportions of the Carnegie Library within the composition of the new edition. This is a subtler approach to melding new and old together. The success of any design is proven over time. To us, the best libraries are those that reflect their place, the communities they serve. Our team and the library's team worked really hard to make sure this was a St. Charles library. We think we got it right. We hope the community of St. Charles agrees. Thank you.
One of the joys for me during this project was discovering the history of the Carnegie building. The St. Charles Historic Preservation Commission played an important part in helping us preserve the integrity of the interior and exterior of the space. Here to help us dedicate the Carnegie Library building is Frederick Norris Jr., Chairman of the St. Charles Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you. 54 years ago, from Shelby School, I walked 10 blocks to get here for the very first time. When I came to here, they explained to me I'm going to learn the Dewey Decimal System. Is this any better? Okay. After walking here and coming and experiencing this facility for the very first time, I went home and to my father and I showed this experience, and forgive me. One of the things that's been really nice is to share this experience with my father. He explained to me, he walked through those original front doors and to see the main collection. And in that main collection, he remembers as a small lad that he went downstairs to have the books read to him. And then on the second floor, there was a theater that was just started, and he was able to perform in a play. So if I can share some stories and how we got here with a couple quick historical highlights. St. Charles was settled in 1834. Evan Shelby, right here on the ridge, was able to set up his first log cabin. This log cabin, which stands basically where the church of the Methodist Church stands today. St. Charles was settled 187 years ago this last spring. In 1936, Evan Shelby sells this portions of lands from Main Street all the way to Potawatomi Park, and for $75. Ira Minard actually picks up the other south half. What happens then in 1836 is in 1888, a dozen citizens make plans for the private library with the subscription of $2. In the 1900, there was a room that was rented at 203 East Main Street. The book collection has grown to the 3,000 volumes, and approximately 200 books were sold per year. Described was the Carnegie Library. If I can back up a little bit, and there is a fact I wanted to get out today that I don't think anybody has heard out here. Our first schoolhouse was built in 1837 on Cedar Avenue between 3rd and 4th Avenues. This schoolhouse was used until 1844 and then was relocated to this site here and then was used. So when the Carnegie Library came to be, the library, they were able to not destroy the building, but actually to move it over to 21 North Cedar, or 21 North 13th Avenue. The history of the building origins many expansions. If I can paraphrase a few words from a famous architect, Daniel Burnham, make no little plans. They don't have the magic and disturb men's blood. Make big plans, aim high, and hope for the work, remembering that the noble logic diagram, once recorded, will never die, but long after we are all gone to be a living thing. Our appreciation here for each member, past and present, for their dedications in the preservation, not only to the Carnegie Library, but overall architectural design, also in the saving the earliest structures from 1837, this 12 by 12 schoolhouse, which is now part of a home on 14th Street. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Our next speaker is a friend to many of you. He is Senator Donald Dewitt, our Illinois State Senator for the 33rd Senate District. He has served in this role since his appointment in September 2018 and subsequent election in November 2018. He currently serves as Assistant Minority Leader and as the Minority Spokesperson for the Senate Transportation and Senate Revenue Committees, and as a member of the Behavioral and Mental Health, Commerce Executive, Local Government, and Pensions Committee. Wow. Prior to his appointment to the Illinois State Senate, Don served as alderman for the city of St. Charles from 1993 to 2005, serving in the same ward seat held by his father. In 2005, he was elected mayor, re-elected in 2009, and stepped down in 2013. Following his 2 terms as mayor, Don was appointed by the Kane County Board to serve as director on the Regional Transportation Authority Board in Chicago, representing Kane County from 2013 and through August of 2018. Let's welcome Senator Dewitt to the stage.
Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
Well, good afternoon. It is truly a pleasure to be here with so many friendly, smiling faces back in my hometown. Just a few personal comments, if I might. Like Fred Jr., my history with this particular facility goes back probably 60 years. As me and my 2 brothers were growing up over on Dean Street here in St. Charles, as we got old enough for my dad to take care of us, or at least old enough for my mother to feel like my dad could take care of us on his own, Mom started working here at the library. It was the original Carnegie structure. And I recall vividly Dad piling us 3 kids into the car every evening at about 8:45, because Mom would work part-time, 6 to 9 p.m. The library's still open every night till 9. He'd pile us in the car. We'd come over and pick up Mom from work. And if we didn't end up at Tasty Freeze right down the street, we ended up across the street at Baker Park. As Fred mentioned, there was very little development on this side of town back then in the early 60s. And if the light was just right and if the skies were clear enough, you could see Sputnik travel right over the top of the park. So those are great memories for me, growing up in this community. And little did I know that the St. Charles Public Library would become such a significant component of my life. It really brought my mother's love of writing and reading into reality. This was a woman that would have 3 or 4 books sitting on her nightstand and reading all of them at the same time. As many of you know, she became a writer in town and ultimately an editor of the St. Charles Chronicle. So great memories, but indicative that it all started, that love of what she loved to do, started right here at the Carnegie Library here in St. Charles. This is, in fact, a wonderful day for the city of St. Charles and the entire community. And I'm proud and honored to join all of you for the ribbon cutting for the beautiful improvements to our public library. Libraries are an essential component of any vibrant community. They provide people with opportunities to gather and are a lifeline to the world and all of the information contained in it. It's a place for kids to study. It's a place for adults to come and grab the daily newspaper or grab a good book. It's a cooling center in the summer. It can be a warming center in the winter. Libraries truly are the fabric of any community across our state. I also want to applaud the library trustees, current and past, because these improvements were done without a tax increase. And I think that's significant in this day and age, absolutely. And it is only through strict, deliberate financial guidance that these types of projects can be accomplished without having to burden you, the residents, the taxpayers of the city of St. Charles. Again, it's a privilege to be here with all of you today. Congratulations to Director Craig and to Board President Rob Gephardt. Here's to another 115 years of the St. Charles Public Library. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. When I started 5 years ago, this person was one of the very first people to make me feel welcome and part of the intergovernmental team. She's been my go-to community city liaison and has supported our project from the very beginning. Rita Payner is so dedicated to the city of St. Charles. I swear I see her at every community event. She clones herself. And the amazing thing is that she genuinely enjoys meeting and listening to others. It's why she's a great representative for the 2nd Ward. Welcome, Rita.
Thanks, Edith. Now I'm going to cry. Oh, I'm so honored to be here today. And as you well know, as Edith alluded to, I've always been a supporter, regular patron, and advocate for the library. Turns out, books and libraries are kind of a big deal in my family. To add to Mr. Norris's historical references, our first home in St. Charles was moved to its current location on Monroe Avenue around 1908 to make room for the original Carnegie building. Not as significant as the schoolhouse, but nonetheless, it was worthy of saving. My husband Jay and I met in the high school library many moons ago, under the watchful eye of library board member Mr. Mike Hill, I might add. And additionally, my husband is an author of over 30 books, and my second son is an associate publisher. But more importantly, I have grandchildren who love and devour books. Grandchildren who sit on the floor in front of shelves and shelves of books looking to explore. Nothing encourages the growing curiosity of a child more than a shelf of books. Quick example. My grandson went into the library looking for a book on Star Wars. Before long, his eyes caught a book on fishing just to the right and below of the Star Wars books. A new fascination was born. Sure, you can Google any topic. You can learn anything you want from the internet, but that keeps the exploration in a box. Sometimes a child doesn't know what he doesn't know until he gets a chance to explore freely at their library. As this beautiful new facility will quickly prove, a library's role in our community is endless. As Senator Dewitt said, it offers space where its patrons can gather to explore, interact, and imagine. A place where they come to find information, but more importantly, find each other. From story time to homework help, from cultural offerings and programming to business resources and a place to gather and meet. The gift of community building and connecting at and because of our library is infinite. This potential community connection was very important to Mr. Carnegie. The so-called Carnegie formula, which Rob referred to, thank you, took out half my speech, but no problem, speaks to its value. This criteria called for a community requesting his assistance in starting a public library to have tangible citizen buy-in. And community, I should say community and elected official buy-in. He saw the value in this approach as opposed just to making an endowment. As the library builds and encourages community, a community builds and encourages the library. From a public servant perspective, our library will continue to be a source of great civic pride and support, a place where our citizens can come to create, explore, meet, and learn. St. Charles is beyond blessed to have this beautiful building and all its offerings, and to have such a wonderful board, director, and staff to help steward this facility into the future and to enrich the lives of our citizenry. Thank you. Thanks, Edith.
Okay. Have you ever been to a football game and been pepped up by the cheerleaders? Well, our library foundation is more like the Palms. Not the dancing part, but the cheering, motivating part. Our friends of the libraries are the cheerleaders, but our foundation is our POMs. Please welcome Maggie Brunner, our president of our Library Foundation.
Well, I want to thank Edith for asking me to talk a little bit about the foundation and our latest project today. For those of you who aren't familiar with the foundation, we are a philanthropic organization dedicated to enhancing and enriching the programs and services of the St. Charles Public Library. This is made possible by our wonderful, generous donors and some of our fundraising events like Books and Brunch and the Community Read. Last year, when our major fundraiser was canceled because of pandemic, our Books and Brunch, our donors came through for us, and we really appreciate them. As you tour the library today, you'll see the evidence in some of our past projects that we funded. For instance, the Helen Gale Story Room, where lots of literacy and developmental activities for children and adults alike go on. Our favorite being the family pajama story night. Another one you will see is the Carnegie Room, which was a huge, massive storage area, and we renovated it to be the beautiful Carnegie Music Center that you see, where you can see the Elgin Symphony Orchestra, where you can go for our classical music series, or you can see student recitals. So we've been talking a lot about books and literacy, which is really the foundation of any library, but also, this is not your father's library. All of these things we're talking about, culinary events, music, all kinds of technology, these are things that, our library offers that many libraries don't. We have lots of other projects that we funded, which I'm not going to go into. You've been sitting and listening so politely. But I do want to, there are brochures about the foundation and its work on the reading and research desk in there, or you can see on the website how you can become a donor if you're interested in helping make the things happen that I've talked about. Today I'd like to highlight our current project. When Edith came to us with the plans for the library renovation, we looked at them and thought, these look great. Oh my gosh, this is going to be wonderful. But she said, there's one thing missing. We have this huge area above the fireplace that is just a blank wall. So we commissioned an art piece. We had a committee that reviewed all of the submissions, committee of experts, and we settled on a piece that was that's a bronze sculpture created by Lawrence Kane Johnson, who coincidentally is a St. Charles artist. He's one of our St. Charles people. So we were happy to be able to do that, even though that was not one of the criteria. The other reasons that they chose this particular sculpture was because the medium, the bronze sculpture, is both timeless and enduring. But the main thing that convinced them was the theme and how befitting it was of the library. The theme is portal. And we thought that that invited both imagination and interpretation of the art piece, which every good art piece should have, right? And I imagined, as I stood in front of it, Alice going through the looking glass, which was a portal to a wacky and wild and wonderful world, crazy world, or the wardrobe portal to Narnia, which was an adventure for some inquisitive children. So as you look at it, think about and imagine what kind of a portal you would like to go to, or you've read about, taking you to another world, because that's one of the things that the library does. So as you walk through the doors of the St. Charles Public Library, it is a portal to learning and discovery. You can have so many adventurous experiences there, from music to culinary to architecture to literacy events. And so we ask you, as you go through, please remember you're going through a special portal, and enjoy your journey. Thank you.
The ceremony wouldn't be complete without hearing from our patrons. And so, I want to welcome to the stage one of our strongest library supporters. She has a creative spirit and is always willing to help an artful hand to assist with our gallery or any other creative endeavors in the community. I invited her today because of her enthusiasm and spirit. To experience her passion for libraries is what I wanted all of us to feel here today. And not just today, but always. Please welcome Ms. Becky Blaine. Okay, got it?
Thank you, Edith. My congratulations to you, your staff, and to everyone involved with the renovation. It is awesome, isn't it? Yay! I have always felt that the library is one of St. Charles' most important community resources. Now it is back, and it is even more impressive. Thank you and everyone involved for honoring the history of the library and continuing to make it an integral part of the building. Thank you for listening to suggestions from the community and incorporating ideas where they were feasible. Thank you for making the off-site location work so well. It provided a quicker and smoother renovation process. Thank you to all of the staff who pivoted to keep the library open, at least virtually or with adjustments during the pandemic months, providing a lifeline for the community. Thank you for continuing to find ways to keep the library current and relevant for the patrons. The range of programs and resources is extensive and is cutting edge. There is something of interest for residents of all ages. By adding virtual sessions to your program offerings, your staff demonstrated their skill, knowledge, and dedication to serving library patrons. Across the board, everything continues to be top-notch. And just wait until patrons experience the enlarged tech lab, the makerspace, and all of the other wonderful updated spaces. Thanks also for continuing to support and involve the St. Charles community, providing live performances and other services that we've already talked about. The library continues to offer ways to impress and inform. Programs like the Student Show, the Community Art Gallery, and involvement with groups like the St. Charles Arts Council demonstrate your commitment to the St. Charles community. Thank you. Congratulations to the St. Charles Public Library, our true community treasure. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Well, there are so many people to thank. I have so many. I put most of all of them on the back of your program, so I won't read them all. But I also want to thank two donors who are no longer with us. That is Mr. Raymond B. Miller and Mr. George Haas Jr. These two individuals thought that the library was such an integral part of their lives that they bequeathed a large portion of their estate to the library. Thus, we have named our newest community room in their honor with the Miller-Haas Community Room. Raymond Miller was born on a family farm in Wasco on La Fox Road, and their family later moved to another farm in St. Charles on 13th Street, where Mr. Miller grew up. He was a businessman here in St. Charles his whole life, an avid hunter and fisherman, and he was also a charter member of the original St. Charles Sportsman's Club, which started on his farm on Route 64 and Randall Road. He was a very generous man who never sought recognition for his contributions. Unfortunately, we don't know a lot we don't know a lot about Mr. George Haas Jr., but we do know that he was a very generous man, philanthropist, who worked for the Duquesne Corporation. And so I want to thank those donors today and recognize their generosity. I also want to thank our very important partners who allowed us to finish this project on time. Had we not moved out of our building, we would still be under construction today. So I want to thank D303, Dr. Pearson, Carol Smith, John Baird, for their generosity in allowing us to use their vacated building at a time where we needed a space to move out as well. So thank you very much to D303 partners. I also want to take a moment to thank my project team, many who are speaking here today and who were mentioned. A special shout out to Mark Zipoy of Shales McNutt, our site superintendent. He worked so hard. I learned a lot of new words from him. He did everything to get this project done right and on time, and I appreciate his work ethic. Thank you to John Shales, Chris Damsch, Brooke Irving from the Shales McNutt team. You all made a fantastic team for this on-site project here. The architect team, Don McKay, Eric Penny, Amy Schmeeding, Brianna Saviano, Magdalena Hebal. Your vision and listening skills are unparalleled in your profession. You guys are amazing. My library project team, of course, Mr. Rob Gephardt here sitting with us today, who always asks the right questions at the right time and attended many construction meetings. My managers, my project managers, Mary Catherine Ann Elizabeth Schultz, my business office manager, Brian Dunk, my IT manager, and Junior Renteria, my facilities and securities manager. You all waded through those blueprints like a pro, even though we weren't pros, and helped me keep me on my toes, so thank you. A special shout out to my managers. I thank you for holding this library down when I was 100% consumed on the project. Your offerings of candy, donuts, and off-the-wall humor kept me sane. So thank you. Thank you to the staff who worked tirelessly then, now, to make sure this building and Haynes was perfect for all of you. Some logistics before we close. After the ceremony here, we will move over to the main entrance right behind me, where we'll conduct our ribbon cutting. Thank you to the St. Charles Chamber for celebrating with us today. Debbie Gurley, Vice Chair, will be giving some brief remarks as we cut that fantastic ribbon. And then if you're interested in tours, we have tours all week long, but we have a tour today at 3 o'clock after the ceremony that starts in the lobby. We do have other tours scheduled at 3 o'clock to keep the crowd small if you're interested at the same time. Please join us if you can at 3 o'clock. Now, I don't want to keep you waiting any longer, but I know you are all here because you love your library, you love libraries. And as you walk back into the building, I challenge you all to be an active advocate for literacy, for lifelong learning, for building a strong community and great quality of life. To my St. Charles community, I'm going to quote one of my favorite songs. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, and we're feeling good. Welcome back, St. Charles.